Okay. So, Naushin, did you understood yesterday? Like, what are different types of SDLC and what are the agile ceremonies?
Yeah, I got it.
Are you having any doubts?
No, I'm not having any doubts. Like, is it fine with only these topics, right? Like, there are a lot of in-depth topics also, right? Like, apart from these testings, there are a lot of other testings
Yeah,
also.
yeah, there are a lot of other testings, but we don't need to focus on that. For us,
I got it actually. I just
uh,
wanted to confirm.
yeah, yeah.
Um, can you just tell me like exit criteria and entry criteria? I
Yeah,
know.
yeah.
I just need a brief.
Yes, I forgot. Yesterday I thought of giving that because I just gave in the document, but you didn't explain it in the class. Wait, I'll teach you that. So for any task, like if you want to start any task, not only in software, but in any task in our day-to-day life, we need some precondition. Like for suppose if today if you want to go and purchase some vegetables, first of all you need the list of vegetables and you need the money and the place where you want to buy. So similarly, for every task in agile you'll have this sorry, not in agile, for the testing process you'll have entry criteria and exit criteria at each level.
Mm.
So in the requirement analysis stage, what can be the entry criteria for the business analyst to analyze the requirements? What can it be? Can you just give a guess?
User story, right?
the
User.
user the user stories will be given, but the client should have clarity on his requirements and he should give the requirements to the business analyst. Then only the requirement analysis stage can start. As a tester, in from our perspective, in test analysis, like in STLC cycle, especially if you are talking about entry criteria.
Mm.
Mm. In entry criteria means here what the business analyst must have already given us all the requirements, and then only we can start analyzing it.
Sureka, hi.
And yeah, Nenu, on day one I gave you a notes, but I forgot to explain about entry criteria and exit criteria on that day, so I'll just explain that. So for in the software testing life cycle,
Mm.
there are different stages like requirement analysis, test planning, test design, test environment, execution, and test cycle closure. So, in these 6 stages, for every stage, in order to start the requirement analysis, there is some previous requirement that needs to be satisfied. Whatever the previous requirements that needs to be satisfied are termed as entry criteria, and after completing the task, what should happen when you should stop that particular task is called as exit criteria.
Okay. Like my one of my like whatever I'm decided to done like to do, it should be done so that I can come out of it, like something like that.
Like when can you say it is done? You are defining
Okay.
the term done. So for
Done.
in requirement analysis stage, you can say that if you have identified all the requirements, then
Mm.
it is your there is something called as requirement traceability matrix (RTM). Means you are trying to map every requirement with your test cases, at least the test
Test cases.
scenarios.
Mm.
That will be your exit criteria. But your entry criteria is the requirement document is given to you by the business analyst in order to start the analysis, in order to get the understanding on the requirements.
Okay.
And for the test planning, once your analysis is done, then you will come to know like how difficult is that and how much time will you need to build. So
Mm.
the entry criteria for test planning is completion of requirement analysis.
Okay.
And once test planning is done, all the resources are allocated and the timeline is decided, then you can start test design. So for test design, the entry criteria is test planning. And the exit criteria is you have covered all the positive and negative test cases, and at least there is one test case that is mapped to the requirement. So if you're having 10 requirements and you have designed 9 test cases, that doesn't
Okay.
make justice because one requirement is pending to be tested. So at least one test case needs to be there for every requirement. That is
Yeah,
called as
okay.
requirement traceability matrix, and this is important question as well. So what is meant by requirement traceability matrix means mapping of the test cases with the requirements. You are tracing out your test cases to your requirements.
Hmm. Okay.
And for test case execution, the build should be ready. Like the developers should already give you the code which is ready to test. So then only you can start your test case execution.
Hmm.
And the exit criteria for this is you have completed all the retesting and regression testing and there are no defects in the application.
Okay.
And for test cycle, the execution should be completed, the defects needs to be fixed, and all the reports needs to be generated.
Generated. Okay.
So like that,
Yeah, I
it
got.
depends upon one and another. That is nothing
Okay.
but entry and exit criteria. You have to remember this term, requirement traceability matrix. That's very important. Like mapping of the test cases with the requirements.
So Sureka, so what you mean in the overall is like when you go from one stage to another stage to make sure that what are the things to be done are fulfilled in the first stage. Then only we once the things are done in the first stage, then only we can go to the second stage. That is
Uh,
it.
that is waterfall model. I'm just talking about like entry and exit criteria for a task. Like if anyone gave you one task, what is the precondition that needs to be satisfied for you to start the task, and when you can say that the task is done. Just the terminology. So this everything falls under waterfall only. In agile, you won't have like this much amount of documentation. The main difference between waterfall and agile is documentation and meetings. In waterfall model, for every small thing you will have hours and hours of meeting, and you need to prepare so much of documentation. Like you have to prepare the requirement traceability matrix, you have to give all the artifacts means all the documents. Whereas in agile there will be less monitoring on us, less documentation that we need to prepare. Everything will be managed by a tool.
Okay. So, sorry, just want to know.
Mm-hmm.
So, in Agile and Waterfall, we will have manual testing, right?
Ah, it might be any model, you'll have manual testing.
Okay, okay.
But the thing is, the documentation, meetings, and the process, the stage wise process will be followed in waterfall, whereas in agile, it's just like random.
Okay. Do we have automation testing in Waterfall as well?
Yeah.
Oh,
Waterfall and
it's just
agile
a
are the
process.
software development life cycles. Those are not software testing life cycles. Software for the entire project, not only for the testers, even for the developers in software development life cycle of waterfall, they have to follow stage stepwise. In
Oh,
agile, they will just pick some task, they will finish the task, they'll give it to testing. Again, they'll pick another task, they'll do develop it and give to testing, like that.
okay.
This is so now whatever I've taught you about entry and exit criteria, this is regarding software testing life cycle.
Okay, okay.
This is just nothing but entry and exit. Just we are discussing about what is the entry condition and exit condition. That's all.
So, yeah, but the Agile and what is the other one? Waterfall
Waterfall.
is related to software development life
Those are types of
cycle.
software development life cycle.
Oh, okay. Yeah, yeah. So
In
that
any
involves both like developers, tester, everything will be there. Here only
end to end.
testing. Okay. End to
Testing,
end. Yeah.
yeah,
Mm.
testing life cycle discusses only about the
Only
testing
of the testing.
activities.
Yeah.
And
Mainly what we do. Mm.
mainly what we do. These steps will be followed in agile as well, but those are very limited. You don't need to define everything. In waterfall, you have to prepare this document, like the test plan document in detail, which will contain all these stages. Like you have to mention what is entry criteria for test design, what is entry criteria for development. Everything you need to give in detail.
Okay.
Hmm. But in agile you don't need to prepare that document, you'll follow but in mind, just among our mental mind only we will do.
Okay.
Okay. Now today I'll just teach you how to write a test case and what are the different test case design techniques. How can we test an application? Okay. One second. అందులో మిస్టేక్స్ ఉన్నాయో చూడండి. నేను పైది కింద కదిలిపోయినా అది ఇప్పుడే పీడిఎఫ్ చేసాము, నేను చూడలేదు. కోడ్ మీ దగ్గర ఉన్నదే, కమెంట్స్ చేసాం కదా, ఆ కోడే పెట్టాలి. సో ఫస్ట్ I'll say about test scenario, test case. There are two terms called as test scenario and test case. Test scenario means it will have high level description. Means for suppose if I want to test a login page, I'll simply mention validate the login page functional. It will be a one-liner statement or 2 lines. That's all. You will just only give on a high level what you are going to test. That is called as your test scenario. Whereas test case means you will have every minute detail. Like it will have a standard format, but based on projects they will change the column names and they'll add some column names and they'll delete some column names. But in brief, whatever is standard I'll tell you. So it starts with test case ID, test scenario ID, precondition, test case description. Let us put this here. Test case description, precondition, test data, test case steps, expected result, actual result, and overall status. So in previous days, when there was no tool to manage the test cases, at the time they used to write an Excel sheet only. And nowadays they are using tools, but every tool will have all these steps, but not in an Excel sheet. You need to write this, but in an online tool you will be going to write. I'll give you the brief. So for test scenario also you'll have test scenario ID and test scenario description. Okay, so as I said, the test scenario means it is just a high level description that you're going to give in one liner or 2 liners by using the word validate. So before every test scenario you have to put a word validate, whereas in test cases you will put the word verify. Okay, for giving even the test case ID you have to follow the hierarchy. For suppose if I am testing the login functionality, it should start like tc underscore login underscore 001. This depends upon which page you are testing and what is the number of the test case. For test scenario ID you will give ts underscore login underscore 001. So for scenario it will be ts, for test case it will be tc. And for suppose if there are 2 pages involved in this testing, like after login you are also having some add to cart, which is dependent, the test case is dependent on login and add to cart, then you have to give login add to cart. Did you understood this? how to give the test scenario ID. Hello.
Sureka.
Any doubts till here?
Yeah, just repeat once actually. I didn't get it. Like,
Yeah.
like what is the meaning of TS or TC?
Oh, yeah. So TS means test scenario. If you are writing a test
Test
scenario,
scenario,
you
test
have to
case.
give
Okay.
TS. If it is a
got
test case, you have to just give TC. And what is the scenario that you're going to test? You have to include it. So here I'm testing the login functionality, so I have to give TS underscore login underscore that ID. If it is a test case, then you have to give TC underscore login underscore the number. And in the test case document, you should include all these fields: test case ID, test scenario ID, test case description, and all. So test scenario ID means you are linking every test case with the scenario. So if there are 4 test cases, then I have to give, if there are 4 scenarios that I'm going to test for the login functionality which comes under this scenario, then I have to give the same ID, same test scenario ID.
Okay. So based on scenarios, we write test cases, right?
Yeah, first we have to write our scenario. Based on that, we start developing our test cases.
Test cases.
So now we'll take the example of login only. So for the first test case, always you should start with positive ones. So verify the login functionality when user has entered valid username and valid password. So whatever you write in the test case description, it should be very meaningful, which will be even understood by a layman. Like if the person is not having any language knowledge on the software, even if he reads, he should be able to understand. It should be in that minimum English. You should not use tough words. But for test case, at the starting you should use verify keyword, and for test scenario you should use validate keyword.
Okay.
So similarly for negative, when user has entered valid username and invalid password. Similarly, both are negative. And when user has entered, left all the fields as blank. And clicked on login button. So like this, you can think of n number of negative scenarios and you can just map it. So coming to precondition means in order to do this login functionality, what should the tester have? If I want to test this login functionality, what should I need? What do I need?
Username and password.
I need the username and password. So I need valid login credentials. And what else I need? I need to know the URL of the page, on which page I am going to test. URL I should know, and what else? I should
ఇంకా
also
ఫాంట్ ఏమైనా పెన్షన్ అవుతుందా?
font pension. ఇప్పుడు కనిపిస్తుందా?
ఇప్పుడు బాగుంది.
You need to know login credentials, the URL, and you also and the user should be already registered in the application. Then only he can log in, right? User should be already registered. Okay, and then the test data you will give whatever the username and the password that you'll give in the test data. And in the test case steps, you need to give in brief, like starting. User hits the URL. User enters valid the username and password. Valid username. User enters valid password. All these steps, every minute step needs to be there in your test case steps. Okay. And for every test case step, you should give an expected result. So wait, I have to do one thing.
मसाला कौन सा लगा है इस पे ये यूज करोगे क्या
Now, for every test case, you have a step you need to put it only in one block.
वो नैंडोज वाला जो मिलता है वो वाला कि नैंडोज से लेके आए हाँ वो पता है इसके लिए पूछा
Oh, okay. A precondition, we can
Even-
write everything, but only for test case steps we should not write.
Yeah, you need to merge it. Wait, I'll merge. Nowadays, there is no this much amount of work. You have to use online tools only, but this is in the beginning of testing. It used to be in Excel.
Okay.
Nowadays, even in smaller companies, they'll use this Excel only to write and track. So for every step you have to put the expected result. What is the expected result for hitting the URL? After hitting the URL, user should be in expected result. You should always use the word should be. User should be able to open the URL. User should be able to enter valid username. User should be able to enter valid password. Like that, for everything you will write expected result. Till here will be your test scenario preparation.
Okay.
So in that STLC, under which stage we will fall? If we are writing only till expected result, what is the stage we can call this? And out of these 6,
Test planning,
no.
requirement analysis.
Oh no.
No,
What
no,
is-
I didn't get your question. I didn't get your question.
like what is this called? If you are developing your test cases, which stage it is called as in a software testing life cycle?
Test design and development.
Test design and development, because you have already analyzed the requirements and you have already allocated the resources. So if I am writing the test cases, that means the task is assigned to me and I have already gone through my requirements, and now based on those requirements I am trying to develop my positive and negative scenarios.
Okay.
So this falls under the test design stage. In test design stage, you will write till expected result only. So when the developer has completed his development and he has given to us, then we start our test execution. So during our test case execution,
Yeah.
we will just do follow these steps, and whatever we have observed we will put here. So user was able to, or user is able to, anything in the past and present tense you can write. This should be all expected result should always be in future tense. Actual result should be in present tense. For suppose if the user was not able to hit the URL, then you have to mark the test case as fail. If any one of the step got failed, then you have to mark the status as fail. If all the steps are passed, then only you can give it as passed.
Okay.
But in order to generate these positive and negative scenarios, we are having like different test case design techniques that I'll tell you today. For till here, Shada Garu, are you there in the call? Did you understand till here?
Yeah, little bit I can understand, but I have to work out on this.
Okay.
If I had any doubts, I'll ping you, Sureka.
Yeah,
Just
okay.
I'm trying to understand.
Yeah, okay. Pravli, నీకు
అర్థమైంది సరే.
నువ్వు ఇది ఇలా రాయాలి.
అవును.
సో వాట్ ఐల్ డూ ఇస్
రాయట్లేదు అన్నావు కదా, కానీ ఇప్పుడు ఇలా రాయట్లేదు అన్నావు కదా.
అంటే యూ నీడ్ టు ఇలా రాసుకోవాలి నువ్వు. టూల్లోకి వెళ్ళేసిన ఈవెన్ ఇన్ ద టూల్ యూల్ హ్యావ్ ద సేమ్ ఫీల్డ్ నేమ్స్, but it is not in Excel. The writing format, like whatever the test case description I said, like you have to start with verify, you should give the precondition, you should follow the steps. This is common, but simply the thing is you are doing it in an application,
Oh, not in Excel,
not
that's
in
all.
Excel.
Oh, okay. The process and all the syntax is same.
Ah.
Oh, okay.
So now I'll say about test case design techniques. So there are several techniques. చేద్దాం అక్క. Error guessing, state transition testing, 5 should be there. Let me see. Decision tree. So we are having 5 major test case design techniques, starting with equivalence class partitioning. So for suppose if there is an age field, let us take an example and then you can understand this easily. If there is an age field where the requirement from the customer is the user can enter only integers, and that should range only between 0 to 100. User should not be able to enter numbers which are greater than 100 or which are less than 0. If this is the requirement, if I want to test this functionality, I can't test for every input. I have to test for every input, like I have to give 0, I have to give 1, I have to give 2, like that until 100 I have to give, which is not possible. So in order to avoid that, we are following equivalence class partitioning. Which means you'll divide this range equally into n number of parts, n equal parts. So now I can divide this into 2 classes, which is 0 to 50, 50 to 100. Or else I can divide it into 0 to 20, 20 to 40, 40 to 60, 60 to 80, 80 to 100. So whatever the range that is given, I am just trying to divide it into equal classes. And now I'll select a number from each class. So if I have, let us take only 5 classes. If I divided the 0 to 100 into 5 classes which are having 20 each, then I can select one number from each class. So I can take 10 from here, 30 from here, 51 or some number from here, 78, 89. So our motto is like with minimum number of test cases, with minimum number of test data, we should be able to cover positive and negative scenarios, all the positive and negative. We just can't simply keep on entering all the numbers. So for that we have divided this into equal classes and we have identified each numbers, but this is covering only the positive scenarios. But in order to cover the negative, you have to select one number which is less than 0 and one number which is greater than 100. So So now by using -2, 10, 30, 51, 78, 89 and 101, I will be able to cover both positive and negative scenarios. This is called as equivalence class partitioning, where you will divide your test data range into equal classes, equal number of classes, and you will try to fetch one number from each class, one data from each class. Okay, did you understood what is equivalence class partitioning?
Because sorry, I missed somewhere. So you have written the -2 and 101, right? Do we do? I mean, not only in the range, out of the range also do we do for the equivalence
Yeah.
class?
Yeah. So in equivalence class partitioning, you will try to test first. You will try to fetch all the positive scenarios, and you should also test the negative, right? So for that, you will consider one number below the range, one number above the range.
Oh, okay, okay. Same like boundary value. Okay.
Yeah. So in boundary value analysis, if the range is from 0 to 100, what you'll do is your formula is minus x x x plus minus y plus. So here the left side, consider the left side boundary as x and right side boundary as y. So for this range 0 to 100, the test cases can be like -1, 0, 1, 99, 100, 101. By using these 6 numbers, you will be able to cover all the positive and negative scenarios in boundary value analysis. Boundary value analysis means you are just trying to identify the test cases at the boundaries. At the boundary, within the boundary and outside the boundary. Whereas in equivalence class, you are dividing it into each subclasses and you are trying to fetch a number from it. Did you understand?
Yeah.
Pralika, Nico?
అర్థమైంది సార్.
And we'll talk about state transitioning. At last, I'll talk about other case. So in state transition, our main focus would be on the navigation parts. So for suppose, take the login scenario as an example, and the requirement is user should be logged after 5 consecutive invalid attempts. So this is the requirement that the client has asked for. Client is saying that user should be logged if the user is trying to give wrong password immediately for 5 attempts continuously. So in this stage, user first he is in unlocked stage, and if he tried for until 4th attempt, even after that he will be in unlocked stage. But after his 5th attempt, the user will be in logged stage. So what state transition says that you are trying to focus mainly on whether you are able to navigate from one page to other, and the flow is as expected. So if the user is attempting after the 5th attempt, he should be navigated to an error page. Instead of trying to log in, he should be displayed to an error page where he will have an error message saying that his account is logged. State transition means the stage of the user might change, or else the state of the application might change. And our main focus in this testing will be on navigation. Just we'll try to click on the links, move from one page to the other, and see how is the flow. And decision table testing means it's just like our truth table. So here will be your scenario, like questions. Valid user, valid password, logged in. So if the user is valid, user password is valid, and then he should be able to log in successfully. Invalid, invalid, login will fail. Valid, invalid, either of it, the login will be failed. If you are writing the test cases in the form of a decision table where you are just taking truth or false, whether it is truth or it is false, then it is called as decision table testing. And the fifth one is error guessing. Error guessing means just based on your previous experience on your application, you'll just try to identify where the mistakes are. Did you guys understood till here? Are you guys there?
Yeah, I
Yes.
got it.
Did you understand, Nausheen, what these 5 different test case design techniques?
Yeah, I got it actually. Error guessing means how does that work?
Means just
We
based
have
on
to
our
guess, just like this might be the scenario, this might be the scenario, something like that.
previously I might have worked on that application, so I would just think like this might be the scenario which can be negative, which can give me a defect. Based on my experience, if I'm trying to find out, then it is called as error guessing.
Okay.
So, Sirika, you mean like this can also be said like, as I have experience on that application, so like
You
the
will-
developer might do a mistake in this place. Something like
Based on that, you will just try to find the test cases which you can include in your document.
okay. So, but how do we decide like which test case? I mean, which test design technique we will do for the test cases we designed actually?
It is based on functionality. Like if this is an age field, then you'll go for either equivalence partitioning or boundary value analysis. If it is something like login scenarios, then you'll go for state transition. This is just like theory. In real time, you won't use everything. This comes only to identify the test data. The scenarios you will write, but how many number of inputs with how much minimum test data you will be able to complete all the positive and negative scenarios is for what we are using these test case design techniques. Like if I'm having a string which I should have only alphabets, no numericals and no special characters. So in that case, what I'll do, I'll just try to give one string. If I'm using boundary value analysis in the form of a string, what I'll do, I'll just give one string which is valid, one is having special character, one is having special character outside, and one is having in the middle. So with these minimum test cases, I can identify whether my code is working fine or not.
Yeah, but for example, if we are in the real time with a project, for example, we are like, for Amazon only, we are trying to register. Okay. In this case, we are doing the testing. Okay. So definitely we have to enter everything like your age and all the details. So in that case, like, I mean, do we get any inputs from the team that we have to use this kind of analysis, this kind of
You
this
won't.
completely
Yeah,
on
it's
us?
completely on our choice. and you will just give that data in your whatever the test data that you have used while testing that particular functionality. You will simply mention that in your test data column. This is just for theoretical part. In real time they won't ask you to mention the technique by which you have designed your test case or by which you have given your test data. This is just for theoretical knowledge which will ease your work.
Okay, this is just an idea, like how, in this
uh,
way you can do
yeah,
that or something like that.
there is no necessity like should always follow equivalence class only, you should always follow boundary, and there is nothing like that. Based on your experience and based on the necessity, you will just give the test data.
And as we mentioned, like I mean, what is the test? What is the actual result and expected result? We'll write
uh,
everywhere
uh,
using this scenario. So based on that, we might understand that this is thing we have used also.
yeah, and whatever the expected result here you are writing, it should be the expected result what the customer is expecting to be. So
Yeah,
based on the requirement you have to put this expected result.
yeah. Based on the requirement analysis document, what they wanted is here. It has to
Yeah,
be.
that is what you will
So
put in
what?
expected.
Yeah, but what we get is we'll write in the actual.
While you're testing, whatever the result you'll get, that you'll put in actual.
Yeah. I think you should add one more column about the photos and all. You previously mentioned it, Sureka, that we have.
That screenshot, yeah, you will just take the screenshot. In manual testing, you'll just put it in a folder, and in test cases, like when you are executing, it depends upon project if you're having an item, like if you're having a field to attach the screenshots or not. If it is not there, you will just store it in your local only, just for your safe side. Because if somebody someday some manager comes and asks whether you have tested or not, just give me the proof, then you can show them those screenshots. But for
Oh,
defect, when you raise a defect, it's must that you should include a screenshot. We will, like how we are having this test case document, in the similar way we are having defect document as well, which we will see tomorrow.
oh. So here, like when the actual and expected result are not matching, then we will have to put a screenshot definitely here.
Not here, then you will definitely raise a defect because it is not expected, so the developer has to correct the code.
Okay.
Wait. Where is this? Okay. We will start this static test case design techniques. So in testing we are having two types. This is regarding like yesterday we have seen levels of testing like unit testing, integration testing, system testing, and user acceptance testing. But this is testing types. Okay, like how we are having functional and non-functional, we are also having something called as black box and white box. So what we as testers we are doing is called as black box testing, because you are not seeing the code but you
Good.
are seeing the application which was developed by using that code. So you'll just give some input and you'll validate the output. You are not going in depth of the code and checking what went right and what went wrong and how he has done the code. Just by giving our inputs we are validating our output. So all the code, imagine that all the code is in the black box and you're getting input and you're checking the output. That is called as black box testing. And in black box testing we perform our functional testing. Okay, inside which you'll use the test case design techniques that I have said. Whereas white box, this is performed, black box testing is performed by the QA people. Whereas white box testing means it will be done by developers by observing the code. So in white box testing, the developers are having like
So this is nothing but unit test, right?
unit testing. White box testing is nothing but unit testing. Probably you got to know everything, huh?
Mm. My crocs.
Developers by observing the code. So for here they are having how we are having different test case design techniques. The developer also have some techniques which are called as, just remember the terms, you don't need much in detail. Branch coverage, decision coverage, and statement coverage. Have you ever written a flowchart in your childhood?
Yeah, Sureka, we wrote.
Let me show you. I'll just give a brief, but you don't need this in detail. So for suppose, can you see this? Let's see right here, right. So, yeah. Okay, just see the diagram. These rectangle boxes are called as statements, and this diamond box is called as decision box. So if the developer is trying to test whether his code is reaching every statement that he has written, it is called as statement coverage. And if he is trying to test whether it is working in all branches, like when it is true it is going into yes block, and if it is no, if it is going into no block, that is called as decision coverage. And the other one is branch, is nothing similar to the decision coverage only. Like if you're having multiple ways to go, you'll check whether it is going into every branch or not. Did you guys understood what is white box testing and black box?
So
Yes,
it's like, black box will be tested by the testers, right?
Yeah, by the
And
testers.
white box is a testing by the developers.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes. So in white box, you are having branch coverage, decision coverage, and statement coverage. Whereas in black box testing, you will have the functional testing, non-functional testing. The testing which is done without actually seeing the code is called as black box, whereas by seeing the code is called as white box. For today, I'll tell till here only. Tomorrow, we'll continue. If you're having any doubts, just let me know. I'll give you the notes. Do you guys have any doubts? Naushin, for you?
Yeah, I'm fine. If I want to ask, I might ask tomorrow.
Yeah, okay. శారద గారు మీరు విని మళ్ళీ నెక్స్ట్ టైం డౌట్స్ నన్ను అడగండి.
Okay, okay, Sureka.
ఓకే, థ్యాంక్ యూ, బాయ్.
Thank you.
Bye, Sureka. Bye, Naushin. Bye, Pravalika.
Bye. 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 Bye.
Bye. Bye, everyone.